Hey everybody, I'm your host Alad, and today I'm reporting to you from Times Square where we have people protesting for the release of the Mueller report. Let's go talk to some people, see what's going on. Release the report, and over here it's so smart, he hides his grades, so rich, he hides his taxes, so innocent, he hides the report. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the signs while you're out here?
We're out here to, see we're out here for Congress to get the Mueller report, because that's what's supposed to happen. They have clearance for it, and they're hiding it. Basically, his grades, Michael Cohen's testimony, he came out, he said, the schools he went to, they were basically threatening them to hide all of his grades because they didn't want it to come out. Yeah. Same thing with his taxes, which yesterday finally got requested by the Ways and Means Committee. Yeah. And then the report, that's why we're out here, because they're hiding the report. Yeah.
So I know it comes down to the decision of the Attorney General whether or not to give it to Congress, and he made this memo, William Barr made this memo. He said that there was no Russia collusion, but there wasn't enough evidence to do much with the obstruction charge. Do you accept that Trump didn't collude with the Russians?
Yeah, but impeachment, like Republicans have said many, many times, is a political process. Yeah. Doesn't have to commit a crime, just has to be, majority, has to agree that he should be impeached.
But what do you think the foundation for why he should be impeached is? Because I know there's the Southern District of New York is looking into things. I know they're pushing him for his tax returns. I know there's stuff with Michael Cohen. But he calls it a witch hunt because he says, once I'm done dealing with one investigation, another one's popping up over here, another one's popping up over here. So how would you respond to him and his critics saying that it feels like a witch hunt? Like, if you guys can't catch him on the Mueller report, you guys try to go to something else.
I mean, Mueller caught a lot of witches, apparently. Yeah, a lot of indictments. Yeah.
But for Russian collusion or for other crimes?
I mean, it was connected to Russian collusion.
Oh, okay. No, see, that's where I'm a little bit misguided. Because as far as I understood, there was no evidence of Russian collusion, but they got other people on different things.
Nobody...
On, like, tax evasions and things
nobody, the public or Congress, has seen the Mueller report. Yeah. As far as we know, Barr gave a summary that wasn't a summary, according to his words.
Yeah. So do you think Barr's potentially covering things up for Trump? So, like, a Russian collusion, you think William Barr could be hiding Russian collusion?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And also, I know there's the option to, like, subpoena and have Robert Mueller testify. Would you want to see something like that happen too?
Yeah, set the record straight. Get him under oath to say what happened, what he wrote on the report.
Yeah. And some of the other things is that there's grand jury material here, so some of the things will be redacted. Would you guys be satisfied with a report that had some of those things that needed to be redacted for, like, state security?
Redacted to the public or redacted to Congress? Because the public should be redacted. Okay. To Congress, it shouldn't. They have the clearance for this. Sure. They're the ones that should be able to see everything, all the facts, regardless, how it happened.
Yeah. So what crimes do you think Trump's committed?
I don't know. There's too many to go with.
Yeah.
Tax evasion, pumping up his real estate price, trying to get loans.
But that's not like the Mueller investigation. That's just, do you think other things we should look into?
Well, it's included. It's involved because part of the Mueller investigation was his connections with Russia. Yes. One thing we found out is he was setting up a plan to build Trump Tower Moscow during 2016 election. Okay. So therefore, his Russian connections include his finances and anything involving businesses.
Sure. So you think he was we're already working with the Russians in 2016's time to try to build a tower in Moscow? Or somewhere in Russia?
One more time?
You think that he was already working with the Russians in 2016 for plans to build a tower, and then he became president and they fell through? So how'd that work itself out?
Well, that's what the public reporting so far has been, that he was in talks with Moscow to build a tower over there.
Do you think that's what's going to come up in the Mueller report if we do eventually get some unredacted stuff out?
Possibly.
And also, I'm assuming you're not going to vote for Trump in 2020 if he isn't impeached. Who do you want to see run against him, and who are you supporting in the 2020 election? Who do you want to see be?
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. Anybody else? Why Bernie Sanders?
Bernie Sanders because, he actually speaks to the people. He actually has a real progressive message, unlike Trump, who was a fake progressive. On top of that, maybe Buttigieg. He's sounding good right now.
I've been hearing a lot of things about Andrew Yang, and it seems like he's almost outflanking Bernie to the left with this $1,000 a month thing. So why don't you think Bernie Sanders is proposing $1,000 a month too?
What do you mean by that?
So Andrew Yang is saying that he'll give U.S. citizens, so he said he'll give people, he's calling a freedom dividend. Do you want to see Trump and other presidential candidates adopt something similar to that?
I mean, universal basic income it's an iffy issue. There's a lot of good reasons for it. But then there's also, we'll say it will take incentive away from people to work and stuff like that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, that would help a lot more than it would harm.
Yeah. So you'd be okay with universal basic income with whichever candidate you see run?
Yep.
Awesome. Just to wrap it up, was there anything else that you wanted to note? Thank you so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it. So I see you have a sign over here. It says, release the report. Could you tell me a little bit more about why you're out here and your sign?
Honestly, I've already stopped 2 cops from talking to people about someone came up who had no idea what we're doing, and they said, this is an anti-Trump rally, and it's not. I don't care if you're on the left or on the right. You should demand the facts. That's it. We live in a fake news culture, and when everything's a diversion tactic, the number one thing should be the facts.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, one of the things that Barr's memo said was there was no collusion with the Russians, and then he said there was enough evidence to get him on obstruction of justice. Do you think that's
100 words going to just simply say, no, don't worry about it, against 300 pages? Yeah. At least a summary. It's not a summary. He said that himself. He wouldn't call it a summary.
Yeah. So he said he wanted to release more of it in the AG said he wants to release more of it in mid-April, but there's going to be a lot of redactions because it's the grand jury material. So do you have thoughts on that?
To the public, if there needs to be redactions, that's fair.
Okay.
Because to put that kind of national security information out to the public eye, while I want all of it, it puts it out. It's a national security risk. But to the Congress, the people making these decisions, to the people that can hold any wrongdoings accountable, they need to have the information.
Yeah. And let's say the Democrats did get the full report. If they did decide to leak portions of it, would you be okay with that?
So, asked again?
So, let's say the Democrats, they get the full Mueller report, but then decide to leak parts of it that are redacted. Would you be concerned about that at all?
I can't have an opinion on that until such a thing does occur.
Absolutely. I'm also assuming that you don't want Trump to win in 2020. If he's not impeached, who are your leaders here? Who do you want to see run and take him out in 2020?
Honestly, I'm going to have to wait to see 2020. There's still 2 years left for platforms to be built.
Yeah.
I don't want Trump in. That you were right in asking that.
Absolutely. One last thing. So let's say there is no collusion with Russia, and the report says that, and they come out with all the evidence, and it's not enough. Would you still want to go after him for other things? I know the Southern District of New York is looking into a lot of his dealings. I know he's dealt with people like Michael Cohen and stuff. Are we just going to keep investigating Trump until we find something to impeach him for?
I think that would be silly.
Okay.
Like I said, we need the facts. Once the facts are out there, we can move on.
Absolutely.
But while this is the issue, it needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely. Was there anything else you wanted to note?
Thank you.
And I know you mentioned 2022. Who do you want to see run against Trump in 2020, and who do you think could take him out?
Frankly, I would she's not running, but I would like to see an actual, no kidding billionaire, self-made billionaire, Oprah Winfrey run.
Oh wow! What about Howard Schultz? Because he's also a self-made billionaire. He grew up in the projects in Brooklyn here.
I've heard people say that would be an awesome way to guarantee that Trump wins because it would split.
Yeah, but isn't he like a self-made billionaire? You said that's one of the reasons why you'd like Oprah. So why does Howard Schultz get a lot of second?
The reason I would like Oprah is we actually know her values, right? Okay. We've seen thousands of hours of her. Sure. She's an actually caring, intelligent, concerned, compassionate person who's made huge contributions, for example, getting people to read books and stuff. So, but anyway, she's not running, so it's academic. Look, I think that Trump is ridiculously scary. I believe in rule of law, and for someone to be running around pretending that the FBI is rife with, pinkos or something like that.
Well, let's say the whole Russia story was off. Do you think Trump's justified in being upset? Let's say there was no Russia collusion, and the Mueller report came out. There was no grand jury material that was redacted, and it completely exonerates Trump.
Of the 17 investigations, this one...
No, let's say there was no Russia collusion, and we could talk about the other investigations later.
Certainly, given what incredible deference Trump is showing to Putin, I would like to know whether, even if they didn't collude, maybe there's evidence that he has blackmail material on the president.
Sure. So, and if there isn't evidence, should we go searching for that?
I mean, look, there are 16 other investigations, right? I mean, those investigations haven't completed, as far as I know. Those are worth doing. If this one has completed, it's completed. I mean, I don't...
And then just on to the next investigation. Because that's what Trump would argue. He's just saying we're continuously just looking into me. You know, the Mueller investigation didn't work here. Now we're going to go look into my taxes. I know the Southern District of New York is looking into them. So what Trump would argue is that, hey, you know, this investigation didn't work out. Now you guys are on to the next witch hunt. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but that's just the argument that he says.
I mean, look, given what happened there, where the president bold-faced said, you know, I fired the FBI director and it really got pressure off of me, to not investigate whether that was obstruction of justice, thank you, would seem crazy to me. Now, what investigation is enough investigation? I've never been a DA. I'm told that Mueller is really, really smart and talented and well-respected, you know. So I would think he knows when to finish it.
So yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, there seems to be this wide range of unbelievably questionable behavior. Like right now, this person they described as a talented economist that they want to put on the Fed, right? I can't remember his name right now. Not even an economist. He turns out that he...
So whatever Trump does, even if he makes bad decisions like that you disagree with, we should be investigating him? Because, I mean, there have been presidents where I've disagreed with what they've done, but, like, is that enough to investigate them and try to impeach it? Because Trump won democratically, right? Like, he won. It's not like he's an illegitimate president.
Let's be clear. There's...
Let's wrap up real quick.
The limits on democracy are what got Trump elected, right? If we didn't have this weird electoral college system, he wouldn't have been elected. If we didn't have this...
We were founded on that. Like, the founding fathers it wasn't like an accident. The electoral college there was for a reason.
Right. It was part of the three-fifths...
Donald J. Trump.
It was part of the three-fifths compromise. Oh, yeah, definitely, right?
Nice. So it says, release the report. We're out here in New York City protesting to have William Barr release the Mueller report. Could you elaborate to me a little bit more about why you're out here and what it means for you to be out here?
For me, it's just a matter of just wanting the information and then allowing us to be able to decide what to do with that information. I understand they want it redacted for safety reasons, but I'm sure they can find a small group of people who can be trusted to read the report and then give us a nice summary of what's going on there. I think 4 pages is what Barr released, and that doesn't seem sufficient given the size of the report.
So I know he said there was no Russian collusion, but there wasn't enough evidence to do much with the obstruction charge. Would you be willing to accept that there was no Russian collusion with Trump?
I believe it's a possibility, but I would like to have more information to be able to make my own decision.
Yeah.
Overall, even if it's not indictable, if it just shows the character of the individuals that are working with the administration, I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah, because I wanted to follow up on that part. So even if there wasn't enough information there to like indict or convict the president, it's just harsh, bad information about him, would you still want it released?
Absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't really matter what our opinion is of the information. We need to have the information. Yeah. Then we get to form our opinion.
Well, aren't the prosecutors the people who are like the ones probing into it? So like William Barr, the AG, said there wasn't something that he could convict Trump on. So the reason against releasing damning info is that it wouldn't do anything. It would only ruin the president's reputation. It would be a political play instead of actually trying to convict and impeach him. So the question becomes, are we just completely continuously delving in more and more things to find against Trump? Or is there evidence and then we're looking into it and then we're trying to convict him of something?
I think basically I don't necessarily trust that Barr, I don't trust his assessment. And if it's not really, if his assessment is true, then we'll all arrive at that same conclusion. But at this moment it feels a little bit sparse, the information, and I would like to have it.
I don't know, like even if the Democrats and Republicans had the same information, I'm not confident they'd come to the same conclusion. I think the Democrats, if they had the report, they're going to release sound bites that make Trump look bad, and then if the Republicans have the report, they're going to do the same thing, which is what a lot of Democrats would say William Barr is doing. He only released the parts that said no collusion and no obstruction. So the thing is, I'm nervous that this could just go on forever with the Democrats saying there's collusion, and the Republicans just not saying there's enough evidence to convict. So where does this really end?
I don't know, and I don't think it's my place to say. Yeah. But I think ultimately we just need to have the information. I mean, it's been a long, long time, but I remember in my childhood Iran-Contra, and I felt like a lot of people were like, oh, it really wasn't a big deal. It kind of was a big deal. And I think it was important to show us just how devious the administration was in getting what they wanted. Were they entirely wrong? I mean, maybe they had good intentions, but the way they went about it was really questionable. And I think that's important for us to know, because that, as we see, some of those individuals are still in the government right now.
AG Barr, actually, I don't know if you knew, but William Barr was the AG there.
Yeah. So if that's the case, then again, that's important information for us to have. If this is a person that has in the past been known to kind of suppress information for political reasons, then that's important for us to know. Sure. But again, it really, they need to. I would like to be trusted that we could have the information and then come up with our own conclusions. And I think for a lot of people who are on the fence, if they found out just how corrupt it was, maybe they would choose differently. But right now they can kind of live in this belief that like, they're probably all okay and it's all going to be okay. And I think it's okay to question. I don't think it's wrong to ask for information. And I think it is absolutely patriotic to ask for more information.
Yeah. So now let's say Russian collusion aside, what other crimes do you think Trump's committed, if any?
Oh my gosh, I don't think we have time for it. I mean, again, it's just speculation because it's just based on other people's reports. But just the fact that he doesn't seem to really respect people's autonomy over their bodies, and he feels like it's perfectly.
Well, he's
fine.
not like. I mean, do you think he's like people say he's a pro-life president, but I haven't seen him done anything that's exceptionally pro-life. I mean, in New York City, if anything, we've only loosened up like the abortion laws from my perspective.
In terms of pro-life, I know that he says a nice thing to the Christians and signs Bibles, but I don't know that he's ever actually come out and said specifically that he truly is a pro-life candidate but then there's question as to whether or not he funded. Yeah, I don't know.
Because he used to be a Democrat. Back in the day, he was a Democrat, and he donated to a bunch of Democrats. He donated to Hillary and stuff like that. So he's a little bit of
really questionable. I mean, it's all very suspicious, and maybe I'm biased because of what I read, and I do my best to try to get a varied amount of information. But it seems that we can. Truth enlightens, and I think that's the important thing. I think anybody who wants to suppress the truth coming out, you have to question their motives about it.
I wanted to follow up with you on that media part. Last question, I promise. Do you think the media's handled this whole Russian collusion case well?
I think some have handled it well and some have not.
Could you name names if you don't mind?
Well, I mean, again, you have to understand, I get my stuff actually aggregated through Reddit or Samantha Bee's show, and so oftentimes I'm just getting little bits of information, but it seems to me as if Fox likes their sound bits and likes to have like everybody's on page and literally just one page of sound bites that they that they share.
Yeah. So I definitely think there's definitely some conservatives and some people on the right definitely like to bend the truth a little bit. Do you think people on the left like to do that too? Like CNN, MSNBC, a lot of the people that Trump calls fake news. Do you think there's any validity to Trump's claim?
At least what I've seen, it seems more well-rounded. Again, I don't feel like I'm ever getting the entire picture, and so that's where you have to go through and cherry pick. You have to check out NPR, you have to check out Reddit.
I like reading the same story from all the sources.
Exactly. And then it's, where does it overlap? And that's probably the truth. And then someone probably has a little bit more truth that others are maybe ignoring or they are not as privy to and therefore are not willing to repeat. I think probably the worst thing is that the media often falls into Trump's willingness to just do little sound bites, no collusion.
It felt like
and then
they got
talk
ahead
about
of the
instead.
investigation. It was just my kind of beef. It felt like I was hearing stuff from a lot of these media, and they wanted stuff to come up that just didn't. Like the Don Jr. indictment I'm talking about, and also indicting Jared Kushner. Things that they said would happen never did. It just kind of felt like a dud. But to wrap it up, was there anything else you wanted to note?
What I did say, you just have to be wary of people's language when they're speaking. You can say, I think, I believe, and therefore that kind of gives them like a little bit of a space in case they're wrong. At the same time, they're giving you their opinion. And I think that's often what you see, the talking heads, they have like 6 people up on the panel, everybody's telling you what they believe without a whole lot of facts to back it up. And so they want to be the first person like, oh, way back when I said that was going to happen. And you have to wonder,
and that's across the spectrum, right?
I feel like it's across the spectrum. I think I've seen every single left, right, doesn't matter. There's a lot of people wanting to give their opinion.
Over here, it's of William Barr, and it says, wait, you didn't actually think I have any integrity. Could you tell me a little bit more about the sign and why you're out here?
Well, yeah. The man is acting like the puppet we were afraid he was. It's kind of a sad commentary when what you're afraid of actually happens right in front of your eyes. It doesn't make any logical sense to any rational person if the Mueller report actually did exonerate any member of the Trump administration. A rational person would ask, why wouldn't you want it released?
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, so his memo about the report said there was no Russia collusion, but not enough evidence to either indict him or not indict him, or exonerate him on the obstruction charge. What do you think about that characterization? Do you think like he's covering for what they're proving?
Like everybody else, I would reserve judgment until I read the damn thing. There's no reason why the American people shouldn't. Let me put it this way: if somebody says no one is above the law, but in this situation, no, there has to be a period at the end of that sentence. No one is above the law.
So, what crimes do you think Trump's committed when it comes down to it?
I'll know better when I read the report.
Yeah. So one of the things is that this is grand jury material, so a lot of the things in the report are going to be redacted. Are you going to be satisfied with the report that comes out that still had redacted material in it?
As long as Congress gets the unredacted material.
Okay.
I mean, that's their job.
Yeah. But would you be worried if they released the unredacted, talked about that material to the public?
No, as long as the Democrats in Congress got to read an unredacted report. They deal with security issues every single day.
Yeah.
The Intelligence Committee does that every day.
Yeah.
So why is this different?
So, the question is, we think William Barr was selectively, leaking little portions of the report. He had quotes that he talked about the no obstruction part. I think a lot of concerns from the Republican side would be that they would selectively leak part of the Mueller report that makes Trump look bad. So then we'd get in this never-ending back and forth between the Republicans releasing good information about Trump and then the Democrats releasing incriminating
the
information.
entire report.
Okay.
That's not even an issue if they release the report. Sure. Right? I mean, for either side.
Yeah. Do you think it's a big deal that Trump, Donald Jr., and Jared Kushner weren't indicted, and a lot of people in the media were making it out to be such that they would be?
No, I think that I'm a songwriter, so I don't know what other investigations are going on. I have a feeling. I think Bob Mueller farmed out an awful lot of things. If I was Donald Trump Jr., I wouldn't be sleeping well. At all. I don't think this is over by any stretch of the imagination. But
what do you think about the media coverage of the investigation, especially until this point? Do you think they might have blown it out of proportion, or maybe didn't talk about it enough? What do you think about, I'm specifically talking about CNN, MSNBC, because day in and day out, they have been talking about this investigation. As of right now, there's no smoking gun, so I wanted to ask you more on that. Actually,
I think the American news media is really symptomatic of the problem. I think Bill Moyers got it right years ago when the news divisions were taken over by corporate and suddenly they had to make a profit. It all became about audience ratings and entertainment.
Government funded.
Oh my goodness! It should be back in the days of Cronkite when the news divisions actually lost money, but they were providing a service.
Yeah, I know some other countries do that, and they call it state-sponsored media. So they have Al Jazeera and things like that, and Russia has their own version.
Well, I'm not talking about state-run.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about it was
government funded.
It's just that now MSNBC is competing with CNN, is competing with Fox, and they all have to sell Jenny Craig. Mm-hmm. So they're all snarky and they're all entertaining, and that's really not what the news should be. It should be boring facts.
Yeah. So also, I take you as obviously not a Trump supporter. Who do you want to see, assuming he's not impeached? Who do you want to see run against him in 2020?
Right now, I would vote for a ham sandwich.
Interesting. So you wouldn't vote. I mean, you would vote against Trump.
I'm a registered independent. I have been my whole life. I very rarely in my life have voted Republican. Just on
Howard
principle.
Schwartz is running as an independent, so.
No, I'm not a member of the independent party. I'm a free thinker. Yeah, so that's.
So you don't have a preferred candidate right now?
No, because I don't know enough about any of them.
Oh, okay. Because I know we have some usual candidates from last year, like Bernie Sanders. I know he's been leading in a lot of polls. Biden hasn't declared, but then you have a lot of those, not sexual harassment, but touching scandals. So there's just, who's going to take out Trump if he doesn't get impeached is the question. Who are you putting your money on to get him out of there?
I would vote, I'm hoping the American people, because seriously,
It's going to be an American citizen. If somebody takes him out, it's going to be an American citizen.
Kamala Harris is the nominee, I will vote for Kamala Harris. If
whoever the Democrat nominee would be, you
at this point, yes. And I vote intelligently and strategically. I can because I live in New York State.
What do you mean? I thought we're an irrelevant state because it's all going to the Democrats regardless.
That's it. So I actually have the high ground when I'm talking to a Trump supporter because I did not vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. Were
I
you
could
a Bernie
do that.
supporter?
Yeah, I wrote in Bernie Sanders, but I have because of what I do for a living.
Yeah.
I have a fan base really across the country, right? So I actually I would put on my website, if you live in a swing state, you have to vote for Hillary Clinton. You have to vote for Hillary Clinton. I had people email me.
Even after some Bernie-crats feel like he got screwed by Hillary Clinton, you wanted people to support Hillary even though Bernie got screwed
absolutely.
by
when
Hillary.
It came down to it.
Even though Bernie got screwed.
Absolutely.
You don't harbor any harsh feelings.
No, when it became that binary choice.
Yeah.
I had fans of mine in Florida say, "Am I in a swing state?" I'm like, "Yes." But me, once I didn't see the Goldman Sachs speech transcripts, I could not vote for that woman. Actually, it goes way back to her first bill that she sponsored.
There's a lot of things.
Her first bill, when she got to the Senate as a junior senator from New York, was to make burning the American flag in protest illegal. Now, she knew that wasn't going to pass at breakfast, but she did it anyway because she was already positioning herself.
Yeah.
So I've never been a backer of Hillary Clinton as a career politician, but I knew I wouldn't hurt her candidacy, and I wouldn't help Donald Trump by living in New York and voting that way.
So to wrap it up, was there anything else you want to note?
No, just that I wish the average age here wasn't my age to deceased. I wish there were young people here because this is affecting them more than it'll affect me. Down the road, I mean, I don't know how many more years I got on this planet. I got 20. I don't know.
A young man. Don't give yourself some credit.
Well, either way, 20 years goes by like that. I just wish that young people were paying attention.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your
All right,
time. I really
thanks a lot.
appreciate it. I hope I wasn't too tough on you with the questions. Thank you. So, why are you out here today?
Well, I'm one of the protest marshals. I was an Occupy protest marshal. I'm here to help.
What organization are you with?
I'm not with one. I'm just a guy. I showed up for the marshal training. I knew a little bit more than they did, so I've been trying to pass on my information. No one here is watching the police, so I'm watching the police because they're planning on marching later, and we need to know if they're going to respond.
Yeah. So, are you out here in support of the movement?
What movement? This is
The release having.
So you have to understand that this is a multi-movement coalition. There's 6 or 7 different sponsors. I'm not a member of any of those orgs. I'm in favor of releasing the report, but I'm not a member of any of them.
Yeah. So I'm sure you heard some of the questions I was talking about earlier. It's going to be tough to get everything in the Mueller report out because of that grand jury, it being grand jury material. What do you think about this? Is it going to eventually just be Democrats continuously just saying, hey, we need too much stuff is redacted? How are we going to get out of this?
We're going to get out of this by following the process. There's a correct process we're supposed to be following. Congress is supposed to receive the report. Congress will then act.
Well, isn't it the Attorney General's choice of whether or not to give it to Congress? So if we follow the process, Trump could the AG could technically just say, hey, we're not releasing the report, and they've done that in the past too.
So by legal statute, he must present some aspects of the report.
Wasn't that, yeah, so he had some aspects, just to play devil's advocate, he already had some aspects in the memo. He had direct quotes where he said no obstruction, and there wasn't enough evidence, no Russian collusion, and not enough evidence for obstruction, so.
Not enough evidence to convict for obstruction. That does not mean no evidence. That's the big trick everyone's missing. You need, enough evidence to prove in a court of law beyond a reasonable doubt that he is guilty before the prosecutor will allow you to indict the president.
So even if the evidence isn't substantial enough to convict, you'd still want it released?
If the evidence is not substantial enough to convict, it's certainly substantial enough to impeach. And that's the proper role of Congress, which is why Congress must get the report.
Yeah.
Even if the actions aren't criminal, it might be political.
So there have already been a few things that people thought were impeachable offenses by Trump, and a lot of Democrats didn't want to do it because they were fearful it would encourage more support for Trump, like it did to Clinton.
They're worried about making it a 2020 election issue. That's why Nancy Pelosi says it's not worth it. It's not worth losing the presidency in 2020 to try and impeach him and fail now. They know, it takes 66 people in the Senate to vote to convict. there are 51 Republicans. That's probably not going to happen unless 22 Republicans change sides.
Well, if there were substantial crimes, I think they would. Again, so if there was Russian collusion, I'm certain and would hope our representatives would act. So,
and that's why I say we need to follow the process. You don't indict on day one. You begin the proceedings, you have a trial, and then the evidence comes out, and you have to decide, are you voting for that guy or not?
So do you think Trump's committed crimes, and like which crimes do you think he's committed?
I think we've watched him commit obstruction of justice on television. We need nothing more than that to say, well, maybe we should have an impeachment hearing. He admitted to Lester Holt on television. We all have eyes.
So who are your leaders in this movement?
As I said, I'm not really part of this movement. There aren't really leaders here.
I mean, there has to be some people in Congress pushing the issue. I know, like Nancy Pelosi, and some Democrats even said that it's not a big deal and that we should move past it. So.
Right now, Adam Schiff has the football. He's the chairman in charge of the right committee. He's going to move forward with it.
Does he have your confidence?
He does. And he has the appropriate clearance, so he at least should be reading the full unredacted report.
Yeah. And what do you think about the media's reporting on the whole scandal from the inception over 2 years ago?
They have a lot of hours to fill.
Was there anything else you want to note?
Nope. We're about to go, and I'm a marshal, so...
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. I wanted to pose the question back to you. What did you think about the interviews I was able to have? Let me know down in the comments what you thought. If this is your first time here, guys, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay barely informed.